As you know, every time I come in and do my podcast, I have an idea of what I'm going to talk about. And today I'm like, okay, I'll just wait for some divine inspiration. I'll just wait for the information to show up and let me know what we're talking about. And because nothing was coming to me, it's okay. The logical brains, let's search. Let's start thinking of things that have happened during the week, things that you've been thinking about, things that you've been talking about. And like, no, just going through different topics in my mind thinking, what am I going to talk about? What is my topic today? Because I'm not doing my podcast because I've kind of been on a roll, and this is probably the longest I've actually been on a roll of doing something for an extended period of time without stopping. And I enjoy doing my podcast. I enjoy talking, but it was like, well, I don't know what I want to talk about. Yet if you ask me for a topic to talk about, that list is so long, it's literally never ending. But it got me thinking, how do you allow those intuitive thoughts to come through, those divine, actionable moments that just pop in your mind, and that is your perfect next step? And how do you react when nothing's coming? And that's one of the hardest things that I found is in that nothingness, in that do nothing. It's like, sure, I can do something. And because I have so many different arms of interest and business streams that I'm either setting up or have set up, or new knowledge that I'm learning, or things that I'm trying to find more about, I can keep myself busy all the time. So there aren't very many moments of that nothingness. And I know in the back of my mind that is the part that I really need to be able to sit in, is that nothingness, is in that state of allowance. But my logical brain makes it so difficult sometimes, because it's like, nope, we should be doing something. Let's write some things down. Let's type some things out. Let's use the whiteboard. Because anyone who knows me knows I love using my whiteboard. It's because I have been so focused on that logical side of who I am, and whether that's just an essence of who I am, that's just the real true being of me, is someone who is totally led by logic. It can be really hard to sort of get into that natural creativity, or those intuitive moments. But then if you looked at me and said, oh yes, very logical, organized, yada, 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 but I also have such an extreme creativity side. So I'm not just logic. I am totally all about the creation and creating creators. It's literally my motto at the moment. It's the driving force of who I am. But it's still married with that part of my logic, and it's in the essence of allowing both of them to work together, which is where I am going to be able to create and be and do all the things that I really want. But if you're someone like me who finds it difficult to sit in that nothingness, to sit in that pure allowance state, and just runs through with the logic and those logical thoughts coming through and searching for things to do or to organize or to think about or prepare, it can be super difficult. And I very muchly, yes, that's a word, very muchly, I'm sure my logic's like, that's not a word. I do purposely make sure I allow myself to be in those nothing states. And I can tell you, I'm not perfecting it, that's for sure. But I am consciously making an effort to try and do more and more of that, so that I can really allow that creativity side to come through, the intuitive side to make its appearance and say, let's do this, let's do that. We can marry them both together. The creative side's going to come out and say, oh, what about this? Oh, what about this idea? And lately, let's be real, I run with any of those ideas. And you'll see a pattern over the years of it's the same idea that's come through. It's the same thought. It may just look like something different, but it could be a similar type of offer or a similar type of expression of my experience, just sort of masked in a different sort of frame or outside, but it's the same thing. And it keeps continually coming through until I actually bring that thing to completion. But it's from allowing that creative thought, that intuitive thought, that new idea to come through first, and then I can utilize my logic to bring those two pieces together. Because we can't do one without the other. We can't just run with our logic. We have to use that creativity side. We have to use those intuitive nudges from whatever point of view you look at, whether it's your higher self, the true being of who you are, your soul essence, your connection to everything else, whatever it is, that spark, that idea is something that you need to look at, whether it's something you are building up and it's an idea that's starting to come through, or it's in the beginning stages, or it's just a step towards something else, or it could be a full-on boom. Here's a whole program, here's a whole list of ideas, here's a whole new process, here's a whole new sequence. It can be any of those things. It's just making sure that we are in that allowance state to allow it to come through. But then we still need the logic to be able to pull it together. But we don't want the logic to take over. That's where we can get messed up. And always, I'm speaking from experience, is you can overrun that initial creative thought by logic. So if you had an idea to go do something, you're like, oh, that sounds like an amazing idea. But then logic's like, okay, so let's organize all the steps. Now, if we do this, this, and this, and then we go do this, and then we do that, and then you're constantly thinking about it, you're trying to frame it, you're trying to give it particular steps and the way that it's going to react, it loses its creativity and it no longer has that essence of that intuitive spark that it had when it first came through. I don't have the answers on how to allow one to balance out with the other. It's definitely part of a learning process, or just being in those moments and seeing when one side is taking over the other side, because we can be purely creative, we can create things, we can do things, but there still will need to be some form of logic, some form of substance behind that creativity to allow us to allow that full spark, that full idea to come into fruition. On a metaphysical level, it's interesting to note that when you are in a place of here and you want to be over there, the way that the universe and the energy around us and the things we really don't understand, such as time and space and the energetic vibrational frequencies of who we are, because we don't understand that on a quantum level, because we can't fathom that a blink of an eye could be a lifetime of experience, that when we want something or we want to achieve something or we're trying to create something, we're applying the logic to it, which then gives it a frame in which to act, which then loses its magic in a sense. It loses the the quantum ability of it to be able to come into fruition of its own accord. And that's only because of our logical brain, because our logical brain doesn't quite understand what you're talking about when you're saying that, time and space all exist in the blink of an eye and our whole existence all exists at the same time. It's like, wait, what? And we can talk about these things, and people describe these things, and we can understand pieces, but we truly don't really understand exactly how it works. But it's in that not understanding of it all, which is where the magic will happen. It's where we release the hold on the outcome that we want to allow that quantum magic to unfold. And it's the same if you sort of looked at it from a religious perspective. It's like praying to God and asking for a miracle. It's the same thing. It's trying to create something, releasing it into the hands of someone else, and then when it happens, see it as something miraculous, this magical thing that has happened because you have requested it, and this almighty, all-knowing power outside of you has delivered it to you because you asked for it, but then you let it go. But our poor little logical brain is like, no, I need to put the steps together. I need to say, here I am, there I want to be. How do I get there? It's like when we're walking in a straight line. It's, I'm here, I'm going there. How do we do that? We walk 1 foot in front of the other towards that point. But if you said, hey, let's go jump through a portal and get from here to over there, your brain's like, wait, what? How does that work? And then even if you tried to describe what a portal was from a science perspective and how it sort of works, your brain, depending on how smart you are and how much you could really sort of accept the words or the description of what an actual portal was, most people are not going to understand it. So then our brain is not going to believe it. So it's not going to happen. So we're not going to be able to time jump through a portal from here to over there because we don't understand it. And because we don't understand it and we are just looking for that logic, our brain will not always allow us to see that as a possibility. But it's in that allowance of that possibility which actually facilitates it to happen. And that in itself is such a contradiction. And this is why our poor brain is like, logic, creativity. And so sometimes it can be purely sort of disruptive and not making much sense. But as you know, it's in that disruption of doing things that don't make sense, which actually makes things materialize. And I can say this and talk about this in so many different ways, and I don't think enough people are talking about it, to be honest. And it's only when you actually start going down these new learning paths, or actually things just appearing at the right time for you to sort of look at and you to learn and understand and take on new knowledge, that your mind will start to open and both sides of your brain will start to see exactly what one side's doing, exactly what the other side's doing. And with practice and with the allowance of being in that open state and being in that endless possibility will allow that brain then to see both sides. So the logic will then go, okay, so I see how creativity's working, I see what it's doing, and it's going to start learning exactly what we're allowing to do. And in itself, it will literally become a logical process. And then our creativity will still come in intuitively. It'll still come in as this divine aspiration, but we will know that we will then have the logic to back it up, to allow it to become more present in our physical reality or in the things that we're doing, because we know that logic is on board, because logic is starting to understand what we're doing. And then we're going to get into this beautiful little flow of going, oh, look at this idea. And logic's like, yeah, let's go do this idea. And it's in that constant working together, even though they're such total opposites, that we start creating magic and things start happening for us, and we start collapsing timelines and, making these quantum leaps through our life, and things just start happening. And not because we went from point A to B, not because we followed these steps, not because we just listened to logic, but we created a desire. We created the desire of something that we wanted, or something that we wanted to achieve, or something we wanted to experience. We then put ourselves in that allowance state and allowed us to bring anything in that needed to come in, to allow the spark of creativity, to allow those new thoughts. And then we worked with the logic to get them done, to get those things happening. And as we keep doing that, it just becomes easier and easier and quicker, and everything sort of falls into place, and we start making all these things happen around us. And the old logic of trying to find an old way of trying to do something becomes new ways. We step into these new realities and these new levels of creation that may not make sense to others. They will not be perceived as standard or everyday type procedures. They will not be able to be sort of broken down into pieces and say, okay, well, she wanted this, but she achieved this and she did it like this, because that's not what our reality is. And it's our openness and new understanding of moving towards that is where all our magic will happen. And the more, for instance, I do that, someone else will hear that and they will start doing that, and the ripple effect of that is just something that will start becoming more and more acceptable, which then creates these morphic fields of reality where people can find this existence and tap into it, and it becomes a knowing instead of a possibility. And then our end goals are endless. Our desires are endless. Our experiences are endless. And it all comes down to us just being open to really allow that creativity to come through. And see, I literally just did a whole podcast when I came on here with nothing to talk about. See, boom, you just got to be in the allowance state and it just happens. And it's only a short one today, but it's exactly what you need for right now. I'll see you next week. It's in the disruption of the luminescence that matter is created.